What's up, everybody? Hey, welcome back to
The Chiss Ascendancy.
Hey, 2 weeks in a row. Good job.
Thank you.
Where this is episode 16. Do you guys remember that show, My Super Sweet 16 on MTV?
No.
They'd have like crazy. Every kid that was turning 16 was like the worst kid in the history of the world. But they'd be like, "No, Dad, I want to be driven in by a carriage with 12 ponies." Like it was just super like extravagant.
Like over the top.
Yeah. It was terrible. But it was one of those things you just couldn't.
Just more like a teenage version of Bridezilla. I don't know why 16 is like the hallmark age for MTV TV shows. Like 16 and pregnant, 16 and it's your birthday, 16 and 16.
16 and 16. Yeah. So episode 16, we made it. It's sweet. 4 months worth of content. So good job. So today we're going to do a little bit of news, a little recap, because we're recording obviously for this Monday, which is May the something. I don't know. I lost track of my days. The 11th? Something like that. What's today? The 8th?
Yeah, it'll be the 11th.
So it'll be the 11th when this comes out. So this past Monday was May the 4th. Be with you. And Revenge of the 5th. And so we're kind of doing some recap. And so this past Monday, a lot of news came out. And so we're talking about all that. You want to cover? What do you want to go for?
My favorite, well, maybe not like my favorite, but a piece of news that's close to my heart is that they announced the arrival of the Skywalker Saga Lego video game.
So we knew it was coming, but they were giving us a little bit more content.
Yeah.
And an official release date.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of all the little extras that come from the Lego video games. Like there's that bit about Watto selling the red flags.
Red flag!
You can't see a big problem coming without your red flag.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, Lego humor is some of my favorite.
Yeah, it's super funny. So that's coming out this year, October 20th.
Yep. And so we're excited.
20.
There you go. Oh yeah, you're right. So October 20th, Lego Skywalker Saga is coming out. They're also giving. They just gave an update for Jedi Fallen Order, and they've also talked about Jedi Fallen Order 2.
Well, I haven't seen the second part.
Yeah, they're talking about, and I don't know how that's going to work because it's kind of a.
Well,
the story's kind of wrapped up.
It was left in a nebulous place. I think first of all, the Fallen Order update's already out.
Yeah.
And then part 2, I don't really know. If you haven't played the game and you're worried about video game spoilers, I guess just close your ears for a second. But it was just kind of left in a weird place. It was frustrating for me because you spend the whole game trying to secure this holocron, and then you finally get it, and he's like, you know what? No. And then he cuts it in half, and I was like, wow, what a waste of smart. But I was like, they're already force sensitive. You've got the two most powerful beings in the galaxy that are gonna find them eventually. It's just a matter of time. So why not? How about you?
You get a head start.
You get ahead, yeah.
So they're talking about number 2 coming out, and they said it's an expansion of the series, or of the, I can't remember the word they used, but it was like they made it sound like there was going to be more than 2 even. So I don't know, but it would be really cool if you were playing as other characters who survived the Purge.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be neat. So like, cool.
You know, if you got to play as freaking my boy
Quinlan Voss,
that'd be
Quinlan
sick.
Voss would be sick. Caleb Doom would be cool.
That would be cool.
So just stuff like that. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box of what they could do.
Yeah, but anyway, that's kind of in the air. What's
now,
next?
The 2 other things. Well, man, there's like 3 or 4 other things, but the 2 biggest things to come out that have been, I guess, confirmed. The other things we're going to kind of cover a little bit of rumors, but the 2 biggest things to be confirmed are Emmy nominee Leslie Headland. She's going to write and produce a brand new series for Disney Plus, and they haven't really gone into detail at all about what that's covering or the timeline or anything like that. So that's new coming to Disney Plus, confirmed officially through StarWars.com, Lucasfilm, all those news outlets. And then the even bigger news is that Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, he also directed 1 or 2 episodes of The Mandalorian season 1. I know he directed the finale. I think he directed 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think he was also responsible for Jojo Rabbit.
Yes, Academy Award winner director for Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
And
everything of his that he's touched, to me, he's got the Midas touch, man. It's turned to gold.
Yeah,
So I very much look
Thor
forward.
Ragnarok was really good.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
And he also was the voice of IG-11.
Yeah.
So that's really neat.
So he's already got his feet wet in Star Wars.
Yeah.
He's got, his credentials built up from... If anybody's got to get a trial run, let it happen in Marvel, because I want him suited up by the time they get to my precious Star Wars.
And he had a quote the other day that I saw on Instagram that says, Star Wars doesn't take itself too seriously, but it does know itself. And I was like, yes, thank you. Mm-hmm. So to me that says Star Wars doesn't have to be exactly the same all the time, mm-hmm. but it does need to be in that same feel. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's why, to me, I personally like Solo better than Rogue One, but I feel like Rogue One feels more like an original trilogy Star Wars movie, but they both feel Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? I think that's what a lot of people had issue with The Last Jedi, is that it didn't feel like Star Wars to a lot of people. And maybe that's because preconceived notions, or here's how this character should be, here's how this character should be. Mm. But when you're a lifelong Star Wars fan, even though neither one of us were alive when the originals came out, if you're 20-something years old, 15, whatever, and you're walking into a theater thinking, here's how Luke Skywalker is. I know that nothing has to be built around what I expect.
Right.
But it does feel like there were inconsistencies, if that makes sense. And so to feel like there's somebody coming in to make a movie who really... I feel like he really gets Star Wars, mm-hmm. even in the little bit that we've seen him direct to The Mandalorian. So really, really great news. Now, onto some rumors.
Okay.
So Kenobi series has been coming for a while now.
Yeah.
Movie, then series.
For Ewan McGregor, he doesn't like to be deceitful, but he's had to keep that under the wraps for 2 years before they made the announcement.
Yeah, maybe even more than that, actually.
Yeah.
But he'd say like stuff like, oh, "I'd love to be Obi-Wan again. I'd really enjoy it. Who knows? But if they called, I would answer." Wink, wink. They have been calling, I have been answering. We've been in these deep contract talks and all that stuff. But Obi-Wan series, one of the things that I was thinking about was, one of my beefs with, especially the first season of Star Wars Rebels, is that Star Wars is so great at location. Mm-hmm. Like, we start on Tatooine, and then, you go to Yavin or the Death Star or things like that. Then you go to Episode 5, and it's like, you ever seen a planet that's just snow? Now you have. And it's just, there's Hoth, and then there's the complete opposite, which is this humid, disgusting swamp Dagobah. Then there's Cloud City. That's not even really it's a city. That's not even really a planet. It's actually just a little space station above Bespin and stuff like that. Yeah. And so for Rebel Season 1, when it was like, here we are, it's a grassy field. We'll be here all night. I was like, can we get out of here, please?
Be here all season. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Come
by next week.
So for that was one thing that worried me. Not that I was ever worried. Like, I'm an Obi-Wan fan. I'm a Ewan fan.
There's like a 300% chance this whole show takes place on Tatooine.
Right.
At least the Ewan part.
In the present tense.
Right.
So maybe there are flashbacks, and maybe that's a way to kind of expand the world.
Which leads us to our next rumor.
So the rumors are Lucasfilm, Star Wars, Disney, whatever. The list is so long of names that are involved in creating Star Wars now. But they're in talks with, I've heard Hayden Christensen a lot, and to reprise his role as Anakin Skywalker. So was that a flashback, or is it like here's what he would say if he was still Anakin type thing? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But then another rumor that I haven't heard as much about, but I did hear a few things, is Ray Park reprising his role as Darth Maul. And I don't know how that would work. Does the Obi-Wan series cross paths with Rebels? Does it cross paths with
Solo even?
Or Solo? Yeah, what does that mean? So anyways, I would love a Crimson Dawn show, but that hasn't been talked about at all. But anyways, so those are two things that are kind of speculative. More oomph has been put towards the Hayden Christensen Anakin reprisal. Not as much Ray Park, but I did see some things. Both characters I would love to see.
Yeah, which makes me a little suspicious about some little Disney switcheroo.
What do you mean?
Just ever since Disney took over Star Wars, they're kind of like, look over here, and then bam, it's over here. Mm-hmm. Like they had everybody looking at Finn. Finn's the force sensitive one. He's holding the lightsaber in the trailer. Bam, it's actually Rey. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So if they're letting so much things be seen over here, I'm curious about what's going on over here.
You mean with Anakin and Maul?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would be interesting if
It would be very characteristic
Obviously,
if they would just hype one up to under promise and over deliver over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think maybe it's because Ray Park has been so busy with Clone Wars stuff up until recently. But to see just him do, and there was that little snippet they put out of watching him do the motion capture fight as Maul versus Ahsoka in the last season of Clone Wars, and it was just so cool. And watching him fight, not that I was watching previous episodes of Clone Wars and being like, that's not what Darth Maul would do. Like, if there's one area of Star Wars that I don't know at all, it's the styles of lightsaber fighting. I'm just like, don't get hit, that's the style. But I didn't realize how much I missed seeing Ray Park fight as Darth Maul until I saw him again doing the mocap, and I was like, wow, that really feels like episode 1. Not exactly, but an evolved version of that. It really felt like watching him again. So those are the two guys that they're looking at to maybe jump in on the Obi-Wan series. So there's your news. So episode 16, what are we talking about today?
Today, obviously, we didn't get to really have a timely closure on the Star Wars arc, but now that we're here and we talked about Clone Wars at the beginning, we talked about, the opening arc of the Bad Batch, here in the final season, and we kind of discussed some things throughout. It's kind of our duty to give you our take on the resolution now that the final episode's been released.
Yeah. I think I was so excited for Star Wars Fight Club that I didn't realize we should have done a react to that. We should have done this episode last week.
Yeah.
But we were so excited about Fight Club that we just went with it.
And at that time, the final episode hadn't come out yet.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess we could have done yeah, that's true. I guess we should have done an extra episode. I don't know.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, we're here. Get over it.
So, what are you thinking? Are you thinking a full look back at all of Clone Wars? Or are you thinking this past season, this past arc? What are your thoughts? A little bit of everything?
Yeah. We now have a final look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a closed book.
It was weird because remember we talked about Sam Witwer saying get ready for the best Clone Wars ever. He delivered. But there was also the other gentleman that worked with Lucasfilm, who was part of the producing of Clone Wars, and he said, "You keep loving them, we'll keep making them." And some people speculated he meant specifically Clone Wars. Some people, how I felt was, keep loving this, we'll keep making shows like this. So what do you think that means? Now that you've seen where the season ends, is there room for more stuff?
I mean, there's always room for more stuff, just because
technically there is already more
any
material.
Scene we're watching,
yeah,
there's a whole galaxy
there's stuff
elsewhere.
going on.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There is, by the imagination and by definition, a limitless number of stories that can be explained and expanded upon. Even if it's something just as seemingly trivial as the Force Collector series, where it's just some random person we've never heard of, and it's their part in the galaxy. You know what I mean? The Force has got its fingers in everybody's pie.
Right.
And so, I think it's both closed and open. If they wanted to go explore it, there's still a lot of territory left, but at the same time, when Clone Wars was canceled the first time, and I guess by first time I mean when we had the lost episodes, we could pretty much draw the lines from there, to where episode 3 started up, but there was still a couple of weeks in, real time where, we're like, well, I guess this is what happened. I guess this is where the story goes. And there were things we just didn't know for sure, and I think that kind of seeing events leading up, especially through a person like Ahsoka, who was involved in the beginning of the war and kind of had her hands off for a little bit, but to be close enough to the main characters while also being removed enough to give a point of view of the Clone Wars that didn't step on the toes too much of what we already knew from Episode 3.
Right.
I feel like it was really well done, and it kind of helped us draw a final conclusion, especially, when we get to the end there and we see that, wow, this is the Empire now. This is Vader now. Checking up on all the things that happened at Order 66. Like, this is after the end of Episode 3. We're now, moving towards Episode 4.
Yeah.
There's just
So
it's a big world.
Let's
now.
do this. Let's give our really quick 2-minute how we felt about the last arc or last couple of episodes. Because since we've recorded, you hadn't watched even episode 11 yet. I don't think that came out last Friday.
Yeah, I
when
did.
We recorded.
I did. I watched episode 11 that day, and then I didn't get to watch episode 12 for a couple of days. I was really busy.
Right. So let's kind of give our take on where the Mandalore's arc takes us, Siege of Mandalore arc, and spoiler. I guess let's just go into that last episode, spoiler free.
I mean, it's already spoils. I kind of spoils.
Rate it out of 10. What do you think?
Just the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
What was it? The Phantom Apprentice, was that?
That was 10.
10.
11 was called Shattered.
Okay.
And then 12 was Victory and Death, I believe. Which is a cool...
Yeah, that is cool.
A cool band name out there if you're listening and you want...
Band name, call it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Episode 11... Dang, they're both way up there.
Yeah.
They're like 9.5, both of them.
I feel like you can't give out a 10 just because.
I feel almost honor bound to keep that 10 close to my heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I did, if somebody were to go through the archives and hold it against me, I'm pretty sure I gave Rise of Skywalker a 10 somewhere out there, but
yeah,
I was zealous, and you can't hold it against me.
Right.
Now that I've had time to reprise myself. Yeah, I kind of hold that 10 with an iron fist, but yeah, that's like the 9.5, 9.7 like IMDb scores that are really high, that kind of territory. They were just really well done.
Yeah, I would say the same. So I think that the way they finished it was really good. I think that they did a really good job because if you've seen other material, without getting too like, if you've seen this, you've seen this already. But you knew certain things could or could not happen based on other material that's already out there, and they still made you root for what was already going to happen.
Right.
So I guess we'll just jump into it. But man, the episode Shattered, episode 11, which was the Order 66 episode. I get that it would be too cliche to name it Order 66, but I think it would have been really cool to just call it Order 66.
Or if they called it Execution.
Yeah, that would have been sick.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. So...
Lucasfilm, if you're looking for somebody out there to help you with title names, I'm your guy.
I really enjoyed it, and I thought that it was... I think it really delivered what you're looking for. Man, I was thinking about this, and I've always... ever since you're a kid and you see Revenge of the Sith, you're like, okay, so what situation would I rather be in? Because if you're on, let's say you're on Kashyyyk, and there's 2 clones around you, with Yoda, and you're surrounded by Wookiees who will kill the clones for you, and then you're in dense,
no questions asked.
You're in dense brush, and little do we know that freaking Wookiees have like ginormo claws that can climb up those Rocher trees. So it's like,
right. Well, and if you've
all right, let's get out of here.
To pull on something we talked about earlier, if you've played Fallen Order. Kashyyyk is fast. And there's a lot of wildlife out there to kind of, to borrow a phrase from my dad, run interference for you.
You're basically on Skull Island.
Yeah. So if you're Yoda and you're strong in the Force and you're able to just do front flips through all those branches, you got a pretty good escape plan.
Now, the place that I never considered because we didn't see it in a movie or comic or whatever, Star Destroyer. Terrifying. And that's exactly where Ahsoka and Maul find themselves when all this goes down.
But Maul, not bothered in the least.
Not bothered in the least?
I think some of the coolest Maul action we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean,
outside of the lightsaber fights and all that stuff.
I mean, yeah, that was cool, but...
Yeah.
Have you ever seen him, decapitate somebody with a piece of metal that he pulled off the wall? He's just casually walking. That's what's so cool to me is that he's so in command. Mm-hmm. Even when things don't go his way, he's like, well... guess I'll kill him. Mm-hmm. He's just, it's just cool to see him large and in charge like that.
Maul is such an interesting character because he's got like that Katy Perry syndrome where he's like hot or cold, you know, like he's either like super calm, like, you know, when he's talking to Ahsoka and she's like, do you mean bring balance to the Force? And he's like, no, God, you didn't. I'm talking about the utter chaos. Like, he's got that reserved, like almost introverted style. And then Obi-Wan just pushes those buttons that brings out the crazy side.
Dude, you freaking know that nobody knows how to push his buttons like Kenobi. Because Kenobi's already, he's kind of like a push your buttons kind of guy. You know, we see him in the elevator in Revenge of the Sith. And he hadn't even made the joke, and Anakin's like, don't say anything. He's like, I didn't say anything.
Yeah, yeah, he's like, the antagonist.
He's got that up his sleeve constantly.
I thought you were going to mention elevator ride from Attack of the Clones whenever he can tell Anakin's nervous about being around a girl again. Like, you're nervous. Relax.
He's like, oh yes, forgot about that.
Yeah. So, so it's kind of cool. You see Maul, and it's like you've got Ahsoka's side of the story, which is Maul is causing chaos for her.
Yeah.
So at the end of their fight, you know, Maul gets a little overexcited, overextends himself, gets captured, and they have him in this frickin', you know,
juggernaut.
Yeah, whatever
cage.
You want to call this thing. I can't. You called it something. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, it's like an Iron Maiden. You
Yeah,
know, he's just locked in there. He can't move.
Yeah, and so he's in there, and apparently this is really cool because as a Boba Fett hardcore fan, excuse me, I'm a huge Mandalorian fan. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember before Star Wars was bought by Disney, and there was like material coming out all the time. Mm-hmm. The most you would get is like a book like once every couple of years, and then you'd burn through that in like a week and a half and be like, y'all got any more of them Star Wars books? And so I remember when I was in like, I don't know, 5th grade or something, I wrote a book, a Star Wars book.
I remember.
And it was basically Boba Fett giving Mace Windu his dues. And I've never forgiven Mace for that bullcrap he pulled on Geonosis. And I stand by my judgment of him.
Bad day to have bring your son to work day, huh?
Yeah. And watch this, Boba, this is how I kill a Jedi. So anyways, so I wrote a book, and I remember thinking like, I'm going to explore, I'm going to write some Mandalorian lore here. I'm kind of impressed with my desire to expand the, whatever you want to call it, the culture. And so anyways, we get to see that there's that box that a Force wielder is put in. I don't know how it works because they specifically negated the Islamiri from Thrawn having it because they didn't like the idea of a creature negating the Force when the Force flows through all living things. You know what I mean? Mm. But apparently in this box, like, you're unable to use the Force. I don't know how it works. To me, I was thinking, why didn't you just blow the lid off of this thing? Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, the Mandalorians had, they had outlawed it, but it was the last one. Bo-Katan had the last one. She probably kept it illegally out from under her sister's nose. And they're transporting Maul, and the whole time, it's just really cool animation because you just see all you see is his eyes, and he's just watching, and he feels when Order 66 takes place. You see it. You see him go, oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. And, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. And so Ahsoka comes to set him free, and he's like, all right, together we can do such and such. And she's like, we're not working together. I need you to create a panic. And even with Maul creating a panic, he still has such an easier time.
Right. When you see him
than Ahsoka
taking out these clones with ease, and he's completely disarmed.
Yeah, he says,
it's just him and the Force,
give me a chance. Basically, give me my lightsaber back so I have a fighting chance. And she says, which this was probably one of the coolest things Ahsoka's ever said. She's like, I'm not rooting for you. And he's like, very well.
Yeah.
And he goes, no lightsaber necessary, and goes and does his thing. So sometime between, this is like a side note, but sometime between, end of the Revenge of the Sith and end of Solo, which is, I don't know, 10 years maybe. there he gets that Inquisitor's. I always assumed it was from an Inquisitor he killed, but he gets that lightsaber that he has in Rebels.
I don't know. Well, it looks
I really
like...
want to know what that's about.
I don't know. He's... If we know anything about Maul, he's able... He just gets his hands on some lightsabers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. He left the Darksaber, didn't care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like in... Let's not forget that if he really wanted to, he could just freaking make one.
Does he go back to Mandalore? Question mark. In Rebels, when they go raid his little nest or whatever... Oh, that's not on Mandalore. That's on Dathomir, where he has the Darksaber. I don't know. That's a good question. Hey, Dave Filoni, if you're out there watching this, how does Maul go from having the Darksaber, using it against Sidious, using it once he gets out in Son of Dathomir? He has the single red blade and he has the Darksaber, and then switches to a double blade for season 7 of Clone Wars, loses that, and then somehow has the Darksaber again on Dathomir. What? I don't know what's going on. Okay, so then you move on to episode 12, the final episode, Victory and Death, and at this point Rex's inhibitor chip has been removed, and you know what it changed for me, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but it changed for me how I looked at Commander Wolf. Because in Star Wars Rebels, if you haven't seen it, it's been out for years, but Rex talks about him, Wolf, and Gregor removing their chips and resisting that. So I always thought, oh, he had his chip removed. You know, the whole 5 things really shook him up, and he had his chip removed before Order 66 came down. But he clearly responds, and that's part of the episodes, and that's part of the drama, is that he has to have this emergency surgery after being stunned by the droids to have this chip removed, and then he kind of comes to his senses. And there was something that came out a couple years ago that said that Commander Wolf carried out Order 66 and then removed his chip. And a couple questions here. One, who did he kill? Because
Wolf was part of Plo Koon's unit, yeah?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So was he flying behind? Maybe?
Could have been. I don't know. It's not really clear. It could have been like there were just 2 in that.
Yeah. So, anyways,
in those speeders.
It talks about him having carried it out and then removed his chip, which is exactly what happened to Rex. So, at the time, I was like, dang, Wolf is kind of cold-blooded. Killed his Jedi and then removed the chip. But that's what happened to Rex as well. So I want to know. It makes me feel bad for having judged Wolf this whole time because none of them knew to have removed their chips. You know? Rex knew something about it because he directs Ahsoka to look up Fives' whatever.
Yeah.
So does Rex go and get him and remove it? And is that one of the reasons that we see him and Gregor? So there is more story to be had.
Clones-wise, for sure.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts? Kind of unpack how are you feeling during... I want you to unpack that last episode.
I mean, there's just so much to it, emotionally, story-wise, character building. I remember I was texting you when I was watching. I was like, I'm finally watching it. And I was like, Maul is an absolute powerhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, you see him doing some Force Unleashed type stuff. Freaking...
Dude, those power cells, those
pulling
engines...
down all the hyperdrive motivators, killing folks with them,
crushing them.
He's basically cutting off his own way of escaping. He doesn't care because he knows he's going to figure it out. It was so dope.
I think for him, it's either
he killed somebody, took his helmet, and started using his helmet to block blaster bolts. I mean, we're seeing some sweet stuff.
It was sick. I really liked how he destroyed that console so that once he started like messing stuff up, that nobody could fix it. And the thing that was crazy to me was, for Maul, it's either death or escape, but going to Coruscant is not an option.
Yeah. Because
that's where Sidious is. And he is terrified. I think he knows at this point...
I think it's just one of those fear and trembling type things where, you know, it's both a respect and a realization that if he goes there, everything he's worked for is ruined. Like, he would rather face anybody else.
Yeah. He would rather die. Because I think that's his whole thing is, I'm going to take this thing out because he didn't know where they were.
Well, and what he was also saying was that he knows that there's still an opportunity for him to grab some random power right now. You know what I mean? Because he has enough understanding of what's going on to take advantage of the chaos. He's saying that during Siege of Mandalore.
He mentioned that before.
So he knows that's all gone. You know what I mean? If he gets to Sidious, Sidious is just going to try and make him an assassin again, kill him. I mean, he's reshaping the Empire so he doesn't have to hide a Dark Force user anymore, so he can make him an Inquisitor.
What do you think that would be like? Does Sidious honor the rule of 2, in your opinion?
No. Sidious could not care less about the rule of 2, I don't think.
So you think he let it work for him, like when he was coming up, and he believed in the
I think he understands the principle of it, but I think that he believes himself too powerful to.
But maybe because he's realizing he's the culmination.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's kind of like that. Okay, good. That worked really.
I think he sees himself as the exception.
I think maybe it's because he's like, okay, well, now that this rule was in place to work in the shadows to the overthrowing of the Republic and the Jedi. And now that that's done, that's not a necessary thing anymore.
I mean, this shapes my thinking so much, even though I know it's not technically canon. But you see Plagueis starting to phase out the rule of 2 in the Plagueis novel, where he's saying, you know, it's going to be where I'm not your master, you're not my apprentice, we're going to be equals. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And Plagueis, in that vein, endorses Sidious training Maul. You know what I mean? That's now another.
Plagueis also didn't think Maul was worthy of pretty much anything.
Yeah, well, and he very accurately, you know, assessed Maul's weaknesses that were, you know, eliminated through the Crucible, basically. But there were just actions on both their parts, and Sidious in canon as well, in training. He was rebuilding old Sith traditions. He was basically making Sith assassins through the Inquisitors. You know what I mean? He wasn't safeguarding the secrets of the Sith like all the Sith before him.
Yeah.
That's the rule of 2. The
rule of 2 is...
keep it right here, and he was spreading it out. Yeah. Because he knew now that he had the entire galaxy. Well, and that he wouldn't necessarily be able to retain that rule without spreading the dark side further out. You know what I mean? Like, he's powerful, but he needs minions. You know what I mean? He needs underlings, and I think he recognized that.
I think he would have even... I think maybe he even would have continued to work with Plagueis if not for fear of Plagueis.
I think he wants to be number 1.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is that he doesn't see Dooku as an equal. He doesn't see Maul as an equal. He does believe that Vader will be stronger, which is what he tells Yoda, but this is before he knows about Vader's defeat. So once Anakin loses to Obi-Wan, or Vader loses to Obi-Wan and Mustafar, and especially in the comics, they make it very clear that he is like, you are crap. You are not, like, I don't think he thinks anyone's ever going to surpass him at this point. Maybe Anakin was that tool.
Well, and I think it's even more confirmed to me now that Rise of Skywalker was a thing, and he says the one true Emperor. He doesn't believe in passing that torch anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That to me is the ultimate
now
rejection
it's just
of the rule of 2.
self-preservation.
Yeah. That's rule of 2 is over. It's rule of 1.
I think it's very, you know, when you look at the light side and the dark side, you have Force ghosts on the light side of things, and that's, you see tradition and stuff passed down. And then with the Sith, it's been very talked about that Force ghost and transferring your essence into
the essence. I desire essence.
Another Mark Hamill role.
When you look at basically the Sith are not allowed by the Force to continue to live on. In the way that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and all those guys do, almost as a punishment. Like, yeah, you screwed the Force your whole life.
Well, also, I think if it's like, they're spent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're burnt out.
Like, Jedi spend their whole life giving, and the Sith spend their whole life taking.
Yeah.
You know, I think... you think about it the way it works on their bodies, too. You know what I mean? Like, you see the Jedi and they have prolonged life, and the Sith, even though their life is prolonged because of the Force, it's also shortened. You know what I mean? Like Bane, I mean, I guess maybe not canon-wise anymore, but, you know, Bane's body had become decrepit. You see it with Sidious as well, even though he was a little bit older.
Yeah.
It was basically the Force was holding his crappy body together, you know what I mean?
And that's the thing, is that, I guess the point I was getting to that is, You know, when you have the final moment between Sidious and Rey in Episode 9, and he says, "I'm all the Sith," and she says, "I'm all the Jedi," she means the Force is with me, Chirrut Imwe style, and all of these generations believe in me.
Yeah, well,
and
I also think
trust
like
in me.
Avatar state.
Yeah, exactly. And Sidious is more like, I am all the Sith.
She means all the Jedi with me, and he means that all the Sith led to me.
Yeah, he means I'm the pinnacle, and she means there's more to me than meets the eye.
Yeah.
He is like, everything you see, that's what meets the eye. That's what it is. But it's me, and I'm super powerful. So, I don't know. It's just crazy. Like, what does Sidious mean? We are completely getting off track here with the Clone Wars review. But what does Sidious mean when
this is what it is. This is what it's about.
What does Sidious mean when he tells... during Clone Wars, when he's like, "Please don't have mercy, please," you know, he's like, "There is no mercy." And he says, "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. I have a use for you." Even in the Son of Dathomir comic, which unpacks those next episodes of the Clone Wars that were going to be made, that is not made clear. It's just he's Obi-Wan Kenobi style, shackled. And
Obi-Wan Kenobi was like this, right?
Yeah, whatever. I'm saying he's being held up in the air,
suspended.
Yeah. What is that purpose? Do you think? This is pure speculation.
Again, I think it's just
a tool somewhere.
Yeah,
or something?
I think it's just part of Palpatine's ultimate design. He knows what's going to happen. I think he's 100% positive in his plan right now.
Yeah.
Like he's gotten to the point. He's Usain Bolt. Slowing down before he's crossed the finish line. Like, that's how sure he is that he's going to win.
Yeah. And
he knows now that he needs competent people under him. Mm-hmm. And I know that he knows he's more powerful than Maul. But even though Maul has ambition, I think Palpatine believed he could shape that to still serve his purpose.
Yeah. Maul... This kind of goes back into Clone Wars, but Maul in Season 5, I want to say, which is... kind of the culmination of his story previously, when he is getting the Shadow Collective together, when you've got the Black Sun and the Mandalorians and the Pikes and all these guys, pretty much a bunch of drugs going around. But what is his design to overthrow Sidious?
I think he just wants his corner of the galaxy. I think he knows he would never be able to overthrow Sidious. Sidious has the entire Republic resources.
Yeah, but I don't think Maul knows that.
He has to know because he knows who Sidious is.
Does he?
There's no way he doesn't. Sidious trained him. Dooku knows who he is, and I don't think Dooku ever knew more than Maul did.
Yeah. I guess, man, we're getting deep in the trap here.
But I think Maul.
So why?
I think Maul's just where he was in Siege of Mandalore, where he was like, I can grab something that's in the air.
I think Siege of Mandalore Maul is more mature in the sense that he's like.
But I think his end goal's always been the same. Like I think he's.
Just I think to have a little slice of heaven.
I think he is too ambitious to settle. Yeah, good reference. He's too ambitious to settle for nothing.
Yeah.
But he knows that he'll never beat Sidious to have everything. I think he's just trying to get as much as he can.
Man.
Because even when he was at his peak to that point, he's literally sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
He's got Mr. Krabs with elongated horns to his left.
Yeah.
And he's got literally, maybe the third biggest army in the galaxy at this point. And,
I think besides...
And he says, a presence I haven't felt since... Master... And he panics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
But I guess that's my point is when he... Okay, if you're Maul, right? You're just surviving. Like, you've literally been eating your own crap for 10 years. Not literally, but figuratively.
A little bit.
You know?
Just a little bit.
You got that
Does
going on.
he have a butthole?
And then,
Can he poop?
I don't know. That is an interesting question.
He was cut just below the navel, it looks. How does Maul poop?
Does he get hungry?
Colostomy bag, question mark?
Dude, what if he's running down the hall against the clone troopers and you just see this disgusting bag hanging on the side?
He's got like an exhaust pipe.
What color is his poop?
What does that have to do with anything?
I'm just thinking about what's in that bag.
It's red and black.
It's red, and he just draws black lines on it every time. Because Maul's not black.
He's like, it's got to be continuity.
Yeah, because all those are painted on, obviously. How weird. How does Darth Maul poop? Does he poop? He's a eunuch.
That's why he gains so much self-control. All that testosterone right out of his system. He's
Episode 1,
he's like, finally, I can think clearly.
Yeah. Episode 1, he's like, as soon as I'm done here, I know where I'm going. And he gets cut in half, and he's like, all my desires have shifted.
It takes him from episode 1 to like season 4 of Clone Wars just to come to terms with it, and he's like, all right.
Well, now that I've got it figured out, we'll go. So, okay, here's my thought. Is Darth Maul... We should have just done an episode over Maul's story, but whatever.
That's basically what this is. Now.
So, when he works with the Mandalorians because they saved his life and all this other crap, and he's like, his whole thing is, I'm going to get back at Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
But then they fight, and Kenobi gets away, and so that whole thing is to be able to get enough power to overthrow everybody. So he needed enough power. Okay. I'm trying to kind of answer my own question.
Originally, his motivation was revenge.
He needed enough power to take over Mandalore, which is why he needed Black Sun and the Pikes to work with him.
Right.
To overthrow Vizsla, to become the ruler of Mandalore, to kill Duchess Satine.
Well, and the
to
thing
get Obi-Wan
for
there.
Mandalore was that he understood that it was kind of the head of the neutral systems, and if he could kind of overthrow that, he could throw it into more chaos, which means more things up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
And you see him in that particular story arc where he's talking to what's the prime minister's name?
All-neck?
Yeah. All-neck, purple eyes.
All-neck.
And
dude, he had some sick armor.
Yeah, he did. But he was kind of a weenie when it came to fighting.
I saw a really funny thing that was like, I edited this to look like how he looks without his armor, and it was like his shoulders and then like this long turtleneck, and
then his helmet.
Yeah, without his armor, he's like, well,
yeah,
we'll see to it, Lord Maul.
Yeah,
my neck isn't that long,
but
it's
anyway,
really long.
All that to say, we see in that arc where even Maul is saying that his plans have evolved. You know, as they've shifted and he's gathered more power and he saw more potential, he's like, yeah, this is bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
And so I think he originally was motivated by revenge, and then he started to realize that he had more potential, he had more to offer, he could garner more power than he originally thought. And then I think that kind of shifted, and I don't know, once he realized how far along Sidious's plans had gone, it was now like, all right, screw that. We've got now to focus on this thing, because he knows it's inevitable. It's the Titanic at this point. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He's like, let me just get to a door. You know, maybe I can get 3 or 4 doors. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I'll collect the doors on the way.
And so
it's just so strange because I feel like my favorite Maul is the one from this season where he's like calculated, clear-headed. Don't care if Kenobi comes. We need to kill Skywalker.
Yeah, it was cool that we all think he wants Kenobi, and he's like, I just wanted Kenobi for Skywalker. You know.
I like how he said Skywalker. Is it? He said, "Is it?" like 5 times in that one like little yammering he did.
Yeah, he was being very aloof. He's like,
Ahsoka, is it? Maybe we could get Obi-Wan here. I know that one. And
he's like, Kenobi for Anakin. Sure. That tall blonde guy that cries a lot, the mopey one. Your master, was it?
Is it? In and out.
It's funny because you can tell
not as good as Whataburger, is it?
It's funny because you can tell he knows enough to like just be obnoxious about it, you know. And he's like,
because by the end of that episode, he's like, Anakin Skywalker, born on Tatooine, born of the Force. You were born of my mother, you haven't. So it's just weird.
It's like, hey, did you see a guy go that way? About 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes. Wearing a turtleneck. Never heard of him. You know, it's like you're supplying all the details, and he's like...
He gives you the Bugs Bunny runaround. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, man, Clone Wars, it's probably... I mean, you can't really outdo the... Oh, man.
It's funny because this rambling really shows where our priorities are, because
Maul?
90% of the people are like, Ahsoka and Rex, and I'm like... Wonder what Maul's up to.
Dude,
Maybe I should give him a
yeah,
call.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I'm watching it, I'm stressed for Rex.
Right.
I'm
When you
less
see him-
stressed for Ahsoka, and I just really want to know where the freak Maul is going to. When he gets in that ship and he goes in hyperspace, I'm like, all right, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going?
Right.
But we don't see him after that.
I would bet a baker's dozen that he head straight to Dathomir.
Think so?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Somehow stops along the way where he stashed the Darksaber, Dave.
I thought he was cool that he's like, you wanted this chaos, and then to borrow one of my favorite childhood phrases, blasts her to Timbuktu. Gets in that shuttle, and then I will recuse myself. Apparently, I spoke too soon, saying we never saw Ahsoka
Pull a shuttle out
of the sky, but she was getting dragged and needed help from Rex, and
It was
so
not nearly
Rey,
like what Rey did.
Yeah, Rey was still more powerful. I stand by what I said, even though Ahsoka's a little more powerful than I gave her credit for. Rey would still win the fight.
Fair enough.
But although my heart was wrenched and I hated to see Rex basically like, they do not give two poops if we die. They are willing to die. They want us to die. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's us or them. He's trying to talk them down. It was like, obviously Jesse was one of my bros. He was in that cool armor. Mm-hmm. He almost had him talked down, and then Jesse was like, you'll be demoted as a commander. And then I thought of you, and Rex was like, I didn't like being a commander anyway. But I don't know. This was like still very validating for me.
Yeah.
Where Rex is concerned. I know there was just so much to it.
It really hurt my heart that they were shooting live bolts at him, and he's just stunning them all.
Also, what a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just kind of stormtroopering at him, and he's like, 4 for 4 headshots. Don't mind if I do.
Yeah. It was also strange because, man, I felt more bad for Rex than I did Ahsoka.
Mm. Well, yeah, because he's like, my brothers.
Yeah.
You know, it's very personal for him.
Yeah,
even though obviously they're all wearing Ahsoka's face on their face. You know,
dude,
she's like, she's like fighting herself basically out there.
You look, and then in the ship, whenever they're all like, "We're gonna kill ya," and you see the ones that are dressed up in the 501st with the Ahsoka helmets, and then you see some that aren't painted, and I wonder if it was like, hey, she was rude to me. Like, what if there were troopers?
There were ones that are like, hold on. They're like scrubbing it. Got one of those Mr. Clean Magic erasers trying to rub the paint off.
Yeah.
Like, we gotta be at the Jedi Temple in 30 parsecs, you know?
Dude, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Clone Wars, basically, Ahsoka makes it, barely, Rex makes it, and then it was so heartbreaking that they still took the time to bury the clones.
You see all those, like, rifles that look like Hagrid got a hold of them, you know, and then they just shoved them in the ground and put the helmets on top of them. I was like, man, there's a lot of headless bodies out there. You know, like, I was just thinking about, like, those helmets aren't just going to blast off of those troopers. They pulled those off of bodies, you know? Mm-hmm. And then, obviously...
There's some kind of steel I'm sure you can push on the outside or something.
I guess.
Like, when they take them off, what do they do?
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah. It's just really sad. You know what I also thought? I hate that I can just unplug from the emotion and have, like, an analytical thought. Because
Welcome to my world, friend.
I was thinking, that's not nearly all the clones. There's like 50 of them, and my thoughts.
When they got into the shuttle, though, like in the main hangar, and there's like a frick ton of clones. I was like, man, Ki-Adi-Mundi fell under like a third of these.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It did say a lot about Ahsoka.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that they had a chopper type droid, and then they're like, blast these dirty droids. And I was like, get him. I don't know. I don't really like Chopper that much. I think he's annoying.
I thought it was crazy that they get away.
I mean, he's got his moments. Don't just get off my back.
You can
he's no
see
R2. Yeah, I can already feel it. I haven't even edited the episode yet.
Stop trying to replace R2. God, it didn't work.
What if they're like, what if R2 had arms? You with me? Arms, everybody. Arm 2. Arm 2D2.
I was like, I was feeling it. I was a little emotional, and then it went straight back up to hype whenever the seasons changed, and now it's winter on that same planet that everything fell.
And you see
stormtroopers, you see snowtroopers first, and I was like, I remember. So I was watching this because it came out that night.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Disney has figured out like, hey, maybe we should put these out at midnight for people who aren't in California. I don't know how that works. Because everything was coming out at midnight
Right.
Pacific.
3
Pacific.
3 a.m. here.
So I'm like, hello, I'm bleeding. But they put this one out early. Can they figure that out? Can they do it where just in this region?
I think the only thing that would be that if somebody had like a VPN, they could just put it to.
So what?
Yeah, it's not me.
So, anyways, I'm
them.
watching this.
It's always them.
It's like 12:30 or 1 o'clock at night.
I remember you texted me late, and I was like, "Is it out already?"
Yeah. Well, I had to go
Again with this.
I had to go and help, with some stuff from work, and then I got back to the house, and I was like, "Oh, it's up!" So I'm just gonna watch it while I'm wide awake.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I said out loud, my wife, poor Mace, she's like falling asleep, and I was like, "Snow troopers!" And so you see them, you see stormtroopers and stuff. I've always been confused, like, so if you're on a snow planet, and they're like, "All right, you guys, make sure you get your snow gear, and you're late, go out in your regular gear." Like, why is there's a mix for the aesthetic of it, but you know what I mean? So anyways, and then Vader walks up, and I was like, "Oh, mama."
Mm-hmm.
I was so stoked. And it was cool because in episode 4, David Prowse, the guy that plays Darth Vader, the helmet is more like kind of purplish reddish in the eyes. And they really show that in Rebels and stuff too. And then, but by episode 3, further back in the timeline, but further forward in our timeline, everything's like matte, solid black. Not matte, but like just solid.
Shiny.
Very shiny, very like, episode 3 is the first time that the helmet's perfectly symmetrical. But in this one, if you look, I don't know if you noticed this, but when Anakin / Vader looks up at that bird, that weird Ahsoka bird, you see Anakin's eye under the lens, and I was like, oh my god. And I was just, all the feels got me. I was like, does he think Rex is dead? Does he think Ahsoka's dead? In the Ahsoka novel, I don't know how they're going to explain that, because this is the first time, unless I just misread, but in the Ahsoka novel, I feel like Order 66 happens when they're on Mandalore, and Rex seems to have already had his chip removed at this point.
I don't know. I'm going to have to reread it. I haven't read that book in like 3 years.
And
whenever it came out. When was that?
Yeah, probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
Crazy.
So Rex is very much more like, let's get you out of here, Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And he lays his blasters down, and they bury her lightsabers right there.
Just the one, though.
Yeah.
She only dropped the one.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Vader only picked up the one. The larger one.
Yeah.
Also, did anybody notice how small her lightsaber looked compared to him?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if somebody picked up Yoda's lightsaber.
So it was strange. I don't know. The big thing with Disney, Star Wars was like continuity. That's why we're getting rid of Legends.
I don't know. We'll have to catch ourselves up on that.
So basically, Rex and Ahsoka kind of make a pact where they make it look like they killed each other on Mandalore during Order 66. So in the book, if I'm not mistaken, they're fighting Maul, and they have him like, I kind of pictured it when I was reading it. I kind of pictured it how they caught Obi-Wan and Anakin in those ray shields in episode 3, and they kind of have Maul in that, and then Order 66 happens. Maul gets away. That's all you read about him. I remember reading the novel and going like, oh, what happened to Maul? And then Ahsoka and Rex are kind of like, all right, take your clothes off. We're dead. We've been raptured,
Yeah.
And then they go. And in this one, it's like they're off of Mandalore. They're off of the Star Destroyer, or whatever you call it for clones. And then they're on this snow planet, and that's where all their stuff is. And it made it feel in the novel much more like, oh wow, Rex and Ahsoka died killing each other during Order 66. How crazy is that? And in this one, I feel like Vader definitely knows that Ahsoka's alive.
I feel like he has his suspicions, but in Rebels, it looks like he maybe had those suspicions already. You know what I mean?
I think he had suspicions, and in Rebels, it's kind of like, so I was correct.
Yeah.
But he wasn't like, I knew it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the crazy thing about Vader, when you look at him, especially all the way from 3 to Jedi, you know from Jedi that there's that good part of him, that Kylo Ren part of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the
Ben Solo part of him.
That felt that he was irredeemable, so he still had to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just this kind of like inward battle that he needs her to be dead for him, but the Anakin part of him is probably hoping that she's alive. you know, and that part of him won't let him follow up on the maybe she's alive. You know what I mean?
Right. It's weird. It's a weird... Like, I'm trying to... It's weird. Star Wars is so much different for me than a lot of people I know that's, like, a more casual fan.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at that, they're like, wow, Darth Vader. And I'm thinking, Anakin, man. What's he thinking? Like, look at us.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Say it again.
I was thinking, like, what's he thinking? Is he angry? Is he, like... You know, because... Again, going back in Revenge of the Sith, where everything's much more black and white, you know, it's like, now he's bad. Now we hate Anakin. And Clone Wars did that thing that it always does, that makes you feel things. And I was like, dang. Like, when he sees Ahsoka, and you can tell his heart's broken to have to go... He wants to go rescue the Chancellor. That's important to him. And he probably gets to see Padme and all that kind of stuff. But you can tell he wants to talk to Ahsoka. He wants to see Ahsoka. He wants to talk to her. He wants to... What's going on with her, you know? And there's so many times that he's like, how have you been, you know? You look like you haven't been eating much. Come on. You know, like that sort of like older brother, like mentor, that loving relationship. And Ahsoka's the one that's like, we can talk later. Maul's on Mandalore. Yada, yada, yada.
Well, and Bo-Katan's really pushing that along as well.
Yeah. But Ahsoka's the one originally that's like, we can talk later.
Yeah.
And Anakin's like, I want to talk now, you know? And then right before he leaves, he gives her like a, see a kid, like a Han Solo, like a love you kind of thing. And there's no like text that says 3 days later or a year later or whatever when he finds Ahsoka's lightsaber and all that stuff. I assume it's pretty quickly after Revenge of the Sith is my guess. And it's like, what's he feeling? Is he like, I wish I could have killed her? You know, has his rage reached that point? Because by the time he sees her in Rebels, he doesn't give two craps.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing for Anakin is that he is able to separate her from being the Jedi, because she's, I mean, that was even Rex's apologetic, where he was like, she's not a Jedi, you know what I mean? And then we also see from the Mortis arc how quickly that switch can be flipped for Anakin, because he was accidentally converted to the dark side early, you know what I mean? And it was just through a single vision. It wasn't that the son put anything there that wasn't there already. He just showed him enough to push him over the edge. You know what I mean? So that part of him was always there. But it didn't negate the rest of his personality. You know what I mean? And it almost seems like from that point on, Vader evolved as a defense mechanism to defend the remaining Anakin part of him from the Emperor. You know what I mean? Like, he's now crossed this line. He's like, I've got to be all or nothing.
It's from the Emperor, and it's from torturing himself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, in the... Especially...
Very, very much what we see from Kylo is just never vocalized, where he's like, I can't go back. You know what I mean?
You can't go back.
Yeah.
Just like I can't. Very strong T sound there from Adam Driver. So, man, in retrospect, Clone Wars was just fantastic.
It's always good. Always going to be good.
And not that I ever want small screen to trump big screen, but I mean, Clone Wars, I guess because there are episodes that are like, you know, but if you could just take, I don't know how you could do this, but if you could take the top 10 episodes of Clone Wars, and that's like 200 minutes, right? So that's like, I mean, give or take, or top 7 or whatever, and just make them into a movie that somehow makes sense. It's be better than a lot of the big screen stuff we've gotten.
Well, and I think, and you know, this is mainly just because most of the Star Wars movies, for the main part, are bullet points. You know what I mean? They're just like the big events that you have to see, and then things like Rebels and Clone Wars are the things in between that you want to see. I think the thing that's so fulfilling to me about the Clone Wars is that it answers all those questions that previously for me were just assumptions. Like, I guess this had to have happened, but now I get to see it and I get to know for sure. Right. I think it's just kind of like one of those things that really puts to bed a lot of questions for me, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah. So, man, if you're a Star Wars fan and you haven't seen Clone Wars yet, you got to do it. And if you know the movies well and you're like, I just want to jump into this, then just jump into this last season, I guess. I mean, There's a lot of good stuff.
I mean, I would discourage it just because the relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka that gives this last season so much depth, you have to go back, to see their relationship evolve, to see why he cares so much about her.
Right. But
to see that paternal side of Anakin being birthed and then subsequently suffocated.
Yeah. So how do you feel? I was talking to Skeleton Astronaut, and I was like, he said, I miss it. Like, I feel like every it's kind of like when you feed your dog and they're like they're just eating so fast. They're literally picking food up and throwing it to the back of their throat. They're like, and then as soon as they're done, they're like, got any more?
Right.
Like, that's exactly how I feel. Every day I was like, Cash is a year old, my son, and it's like, well, I'm up at 4 a.m. to change this pee-pee diaper. Clone Wars is out. And my eyes open up and I'm like,
yeah.
So now that's not there anymore.
I don't want them to beat it to death.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm glad that we got what we did. Just because, like I said earlier, it's finally given it an ending with a bow. They took it all the way to episode 3 and beyond. Mm-hmm. Which it just was a completion. I remember when we were watching it, or I had watched it the first time, and you get to the end of the lost episodes, and it's just you're like, dope. Now what? You know what I mean? And
right,
there was still that gap.
There was still a ton of questions, and there still is.
Yeah.
But I think it did an amazing job of bridging most of that gap.
But timeline wise, we now have a complete sequence of events. You know
right,
what I mean?
And that's what
even if it's just in one avenue, it's been bridged. So we know for sure what was happening somewhere during that point in time.
Right, and maybe that's what more Clone Wars means in the future if they do that. Maybe they won't, and if they don't, I totally understand because the way they sent it off was so good.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they've hyped it up so much as
this is it.
This is it. This is the last one. You know, and I think they would just. I think Disney has too much pride to be like, just kidding.
Yeah.
If anything, they're going to start a different series.
Mm-hmm. So, man, if you're a Star Wars fan and you're like, I'm kind of burnt out on the movies, or you don't like the sequels or whatever, and if you don't, whatever, get over yourself. But Clone Wars is just amazing, and you can watch it 20 minutes at a time and just burn through it. And then once you get to season 1 is already good.
I would say by season 3,
but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's like.
Yeah. And it's not just the story; it's about Star Wars itself. You know what I mean? It opens up a whole new side of the Force.
Yeah, the world building is ridiculous.
The character development between 2 and 3 is huge to really give depth to Episode 3, in my opinion. And even characters that you don't really get to see very much, like Plo Koon, has 0 lines in the films, and he's one of my favorite Star Wars characters now because of the Clone Wars.
I mean, Darth Maul. Hello.
Yeah, and
he's in 1 movie, 2 movies now because of Solo. But
yeah.
Within the Skywalker saga, he's in 1 movie, and but because of Clone Wars, it was smart to bring him into Rebels, and then they saw that fans were like, "Heck to the freaking yes!"
Yeah,
and so it made sense to bring him into Solo, which is every time I watch Solo, I'm like, I have to finish it because I have to see.
Well, and then beyond that, they're just. I guess until Fallen Order came out, we never really got confirmation about this apparently third side of the Force, which is Force magic, which is almost exclusively used by the Night Sisters. We get to see that close up. You get way deeper into the light side and the unexplored territory somewhere beyond. Yeah. And I don't know, there's so much about Star Wars.
It really explains a lot of stuff with the Force that you can't do in a 2-hour movie.
Exactly.
That you can do over a 3 or 4 or 5 episode arc.
Right, and that's my most beloved characteristic about the Clone Wars is that they take time to do it right. I feel for me that Rebels was a bit rushed in their storytelling. In that they're like, all right, this episode's got to be done. We got to be moved on to the next chapter by next episode. So we're going to have a really cheesy ending and nobody dies. But the Clone Wars is going to take time, and they're going to do it 4 or 5 episodes if they have to make sure that they do it right.
Yeah, it was interesting, man. It was a good ride. I am sad. Like, I know it's not a person, but I feel sad that it's over.
I am
but it's still
celebrating the life of Clone Wars.
Today is a celebration.
A celebration of the life of Clone Wars.
So there you go, episode 16, celebrating Clone Wars. And there is new stuff. Disney is the master of new material that they already have.
I'm looking forward to comic series. I'm looking forward to new novels.
High Republic's
still on the way. We don't even know what that new film's going to be about. I assume High Republic.
Right. So, and then you have Disney Gallery, which there's 2 episodes of that out now that are talking about basically the making of The Mandalorian. And you have kind of a round table with a bunch of the people, Favreau and Filoni and a bunch of the directors.
Yeah, all the minds,
if not all the
and
directors,
behind
talking about what it's like. And so jump into that. And there's going to be new stuff all the time. So I think that's all we have for today.
That's what we have.
So
And,
may the force be with you.
remember, the only family you have here is me.
See ya.